Revolution Week, which happens in the April 24th is the anniversary. So around that time, Fashion Revolution India has now been operating for 5 years. We have a team that has a presence all across the country. We're very proud that we've found country coordinators from the north to the south, from the west to the east. So we have a lovely network in place now. And we are organizing these talks because as everybody knows, we are going through the lockdown and the world is changing for everyone in manufacturing, production, consuming, in all aspects. And because Fashion Revolution it started off with the desire to make sure that the fashion industry, which is such a massive global industry that provides employment to so many people all over the world, why should fashion be harming either the environment or the people who work in fashion? So we had to have a response to what is going on, what we are going through, and that's why we've put together this series of talks called The Shift. We are so happy to be talking to Stefano because I was a Sari works in circularity, and personally that's something I'm almost fanatically passionate about. Once you get to know me better, you'll understand how neurotic I am about waste and upcycling and everything to do with zero waste living, but also specifically within textiles. Upcycling projects are something that I really love. And so I was a Sari. If you've been admiring my hairband, that's an I was a Sari hairband. And when we heard that because of the lockdown, they were going through a rather rough patch, we thought we'd reach out to Stefano to hear firsthand what's happening. And before we jump into that section of the conversation, I just wanted you to get into explaining for the audience who doesn't know and isn't familiar, explaining a little bit about I Was a Sari and how it came about and the principles that it stands for. Over to you.
Thank you, Alia. Thanks for having us here, and hi to everybody. So, yeah, my name is Stefano. I'm the founder and still the managing director of I Was a Sari. And I Was a Sari is a brand, a sustainable fashion brand that makes accessories and garments using pre-loved Indian saris and outsourcing production 100% to female artisans from Mumbai that come from disadvantaged backgrounds. So whatever we do is about sustainability. We upcycle saris and other material into desirable fashion items. We engage in the production female artisans, giving them really a chance most of the time to join the labor market. And we are very proud also to always repeat that for us, sustainability is about the environment, is about how we treat the people, but it's also the fact that we are basically a company. So we are not a charity. We run a business and we compete in the market, and we survive if our products are good enough and ideally even better than competition.
Got it. So you don't it's a profit and loss business like a regular how you.
Yeah, we are a zero dividend company, but at the same time we are a private limited company. Yeah. So we are for profit. If we make profit, we pay taxes. We pay all the resources at market value. So we have to compete in the market. We want to have good resources working with us. The only aspect is that at the end of the year, if we make a profit, we do not distribute the profit because from inception, the founders have decided that the idea behind I Was a Sari is to support communities coming from underprivileged backgrounds. So 100% of the profits are reinvested for the development of the project and in order to support social causes which are very close to our mission. And COVID turned out to be a fantastic cause to support.
Sure. So I wanted to also just talk a little bit about the idea of triple bottom line, which is something that you have mentioned in your description. And it's a term which it's been very popular internationally, but I haven't seen it being used too much in India. So I wanted you to just talk about a little bit about what that means, the principles.
Yeah, as you said, it's correct. So the triple bottom line, so people, planet, profit, is very common internationally. These are basically also the three pillars of CSR normally. While in India, when you think about CSR, you normally focus on people, inclusion, poverty. So for us, the sustainability is the reason why we exist. When I thought about this business idea, I really asked myself if there was a need for a new brand. And actually, the answer is no. I mean, fashion is already crowded enough. So the reason for us was, okay, there's no need for just another brand, but there is always need for brands and initiatives that are supporting a great cause. So for us, the main driver when we started was clearly social inclusion. So we started with this idea that if you look at really disadvantaged strata of the Indian society, and I have a direct experience mainly in Mumbai, you really see that there is a huge availability of talents, but there are really limited opportunities. So we started from this idea that talents are there, they have time, they have motivation, they have drive, but very often they have no opportunities. And for many reasons, starting from the fact that women, especially if they come from a certain segment of the society, they cannot commute. So they cannot take care of their families and then take a bus, take a train, and go somewhere to work. So observing this availability of talents, we really decided that we wanted to do something. And Sari was born by chance. I mean, it's Sari because one day, I don't remember even how many years ago, I was in the Kamatipura area, so in the central belt of Mumbai, and I ended up in a godown full of saris. And I entered this crowded space, and I start asking, okay, can you open this bundle? Can you open that? And every time I said, wow, wow, wow. And I remember that I left and I said, oh, this is something that can be leveraged. And for a few weeks, probably I was even convinced to be the first one to have this idea of upcycling saris. Then I researched a little bit and realized that Indians, when it comes to upcycling, are not second to anyone. And so there is a centuries-old tradition in doing that. Yeah. So that's so for us, again, starting from the social pillar, then working upcycling, clearly also the environment, the fact that we apply a zero waste policy, it's clearly important. And last but not least, the fact that, as I said, in our DNA, we have this idea that although we support a social cause, although we are a social enterprise, we cannot take it for granted. We cannot assume that just for that, our products should be purchased and we should be successful. There is a market, and the market is, there's a big competition, and we have to be peer level, ideally even slightly better than competition in order to.
Sure. So, yeah, it is very competitive for sure. Consumers have a lot of options, and yeah, of course. So the other thing that was really interesting was how you had worked with a couple of these NGO partners in setting up in the initial stages, finding and organizing and training. Would you tell us a little bit about how that exchange worked, and also when we move forward and talking about lockdown, and how the NGO partners played a role, if at all, that whole thread.
And I'm very glad that you are asking this question, because sometimes I feel that we don't give enough credit, enough visibility to our partners. In our model, there is a company which is called Second Innings. That is the company that owns and runs the brand Sari. Already the name is not by mistake, Second Innings, because the goal of this company is to really give a second chance to people in the society that didn't get one in the first place. So Second Innings is basically taking all the risk and is developing the products, taking care of sales, marketing, logistics, everything, except production. So our production is 100% outsourced to two NGOs. The first we started working with from day one. It's called Community Outreach Program. It's a Mumbai-based organization, and with them we started from day one. For a couple of years, actually, Sari was sort of incubated by Co-op, in the sense that we were using their spaces, working with their people. And the second one is called Animed Charitable Trust, which is also based in Mumbai, in Jogeshwari. And also with Animed, we have started working nearly 4 years ago. So both of them are really a two partnership, really consolidated. And for us, they are part of the company, or so they are an extension of our company, or we are an extension of their organization. We decide together all our social strategy. We involve them a lot in many discussions. And at the end, again, 100% of the production is taken care by them. They do manage our artisans, and this is by design, because basically working with women coming from slums, communities, basically requires a lot of trust from these women, and especially from their families. And so you need to have a partner that is embedded in that community, that has already created a trust. And so the artisans are 100% managed by the NGOs. And I really, when I go to the centers, there are still cases where sometimes when young artisans join the team, for the first week or even sometimes even longer, typically the mother-in-law, if they are just married, she comes to the center and she's there, silent, observing, and basically the mother-in-law has to certify that the environment is safe, and so sometimes I go there and there are this situation, and so I have to behave because I don't have to scare anybody. Oh, first there is a man, second is Agora, and all these things. So,
yeah.
So again, we wouldn't exist without our partners, and they are really an extension of our company, of our brand.
No, it's very interesting model because I mean, you hear of the concept of self-help groups. They're prevalent all across India. Communities have all, and the fact that they've been able to liaise and create this fashion brand, which is, it's definitely made a mark. Which brings me to another milestone, which is when you guys were awarded the Circular Design Award. Was it last year? Yeah.
It was January 2019. So the Lakme Fashion Week, in collaboration with the United Nations and with Reliance, they decided to launch this award for circularity that was at that time the first one in India. And we got to know about it, we looked into it, and we said, okay, so we think that we have something to say. So we applied, and then we realized that it was becoming something big, and at the end there were like 900 applications, and we got selected among the 8 finalists. And so we went, end of January, we went there, and everything went super well. It was really fun, and we won. And so we won the award, and that was in a way a turning point for us, because really position our Sari. We are still small. We are still. I mean, I don't want to sound arrogant, but winning that award position us. Basically, was for us the opportunity to become part of a bigger and in a way also global discussion about sustainable fashion. And after that, we have been invited, for instance, in a couple of months later, we have been invited to Nairobi for the UN Summit on Environment. And we were there. We were there representing the movement of sustainable fashion with guys like you that clearly have another standing, another visibility. So we organized a show at this summit in Nairobi, and we gave speeches. And from there, really, we started playing a different role in this overall movement of sustainable fashion. And then in September, a few months later, I don't know how related to the Circular Design Challenge, but we won also the Green Carpet Award for responsible disruption. And the Green Carpet Award is an award that happens every year in Milan. And it's really like the Oscar for sustainable fashion. So we went there with 6-7 of our staff and artisans, and we were on stage with people like Stella McCartney, Sophia Loren. I mean, for us it was a big thing.
Yeah, wonderful. That just sounds like what a lift. That's a great feeling. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the question I've been dying to ask you is, where do you get the saris from, and how do you decide which saris?
So, I told you when we spoke in the last few days that I'm actually now I'm in Colombo, where my wife, my daughter, so my family lives, and I was basically I was last in Mumbai at the end of February, and then being Italian and due to this COVID, my visa has been cancelled. So since the end of February, I'm not in the position to come back to Mumbai, and I really miss the sari. I really miss this to be exposed to the variety of prints, colors, even the smell. they have a, when we enter in our workshop, there is a smell that is, I mean, I could recognize everywhere. So we buy tens of thousands of we love to say pre-loved saris, not second-hand, not used, I mean, pre-loved saris. And the main driver for us is basically colors and print. Composition is one element, but is less relevant for us. What is really important is that we are very picky when it comes to which prints and which colors we select. When we go and we buy saris, we just buy a percentage, relatively small percentage. So if we check 1,000 saris, best case we can get 300-400 out of that 1,000, because we are very peculiar. We get the sari, and when we have the sari, we do a first quality check, depending on also on the texture of the sari. We decide which are the best products in order to utilize that material. So really, it's based on experience. We can, and what is really fascinating is that you get a sari and you open it, you have in front of you, and with experience, you know that that same sari can turn into an amazing pajama and into a boring scarf, or it can be really, so you look at it and at first it's okay, it's a sari, okay, you want to, no, you touch it, and at that point you put all the elements together and say, you know what, this is made really to become a fantastic bag. This is going to be a pajama rather than, and it's really fascinating, and it also shows the time. I mean, circularity, upcycling. People sometimes say, okay, but they think about the price, for instance, and they say, okay, but if you use upcycled material, can you not reduce the price and things? And I always say, look, to work in upcycling is much more complicated and takes much more time than to work with virgin material. We don't buy a roll of fabric and boom, that color, that fabric, we make 1,000 skirts. Every sari is one. You have to take it, you have to check, you have to play around the defects, and then you have to decide what are you going to use that sari for. And at the end of the day, that takes more time. This selection, the sourcing, the selection takes more time than the making of the same item. And that's what circularity is. It's not an easy business. It's not the most lucrative business because, again, there is nothing easier than traditional supply chain where you say, boom, this is the product, I need 1,000 meters. You place the order, it comes, and you do quality check. And then in circularity, it goes to another level. You have to really check, adapt, play around the defects, and but it's a beauty also of what we do.
Great. And you have 3 production centers in Mumbai. You had 3 production centers in Mumbai, correct?
We have one, which is the office and workshop of Second Innings, which is in Badala. And then we have 6 centers, which are distributed across Greater Mumbai.
Got it.
From Thane to Dharavi to Jogeshwari, so they are a little bit all over Mumbai.
Yeah. So now moving to the part about lockdown and how that sudden breaks hit, and I didn't realize that it also led to your visa being taken out of the deal. But if you could just, let's get into that part of the story to sort of catch us up with the last 2 months and the drastic change.
Yeah, so we started feeling the impact of COVID at the end of February when the first orders got cancelled. And that's because we export 80% plus, and we export mainly to countries that have been heavily impacted by COVID: Italy, France, UK, US. So at the end of February, the first orders got cancelled. Then beginning of March, my visa got cancelled. And I remember exactly, it was March 17th, and I think it was Tuesday. I went to sleep and I couldn't sleep. And I realized that following the development in Europe, especially in Italy, I come from the epicenter of COVID in Italy. I realized that it was too risky for our staff to come to work. Most of my colleagues, they come by train and they commute. So I remember waking up and sending a message through WhatsApp telling everybody that as of March 18th, I think it was Wednesday, all operations were suspended till further date and details. And that is how it started. Our production centers went on for another couple of days, but by Friday that week, 100% of the operations were shut down, and still is the case. So we immediately had to decide what to do in order to sustain our artisans. Just to give you an idea, we are about 20 people plus a few full-time consultants working for Second Innings. And in March, we had around 170 artisans. Plus, we have around 10 people working full-time in the staff of our NGO. So altogether, we are a little bit more than 200 people. And immediately we decided that in a situation like this, we couldn't really let the staff, but also the artisans down. So in March and also in April, we have paid 100% of the salaries, clearly to the staff, but also to the artisans. And now that the lockdown has been further extended, in the coming days, we will decide what we are going to do for May, but basically it's going to be the same. We are a small company, small organization, so our resources are not endless, and we are clearly struggling, but the priority is to basically pay the salaries, pay the stipends to the artisan in a way that nobody has to really take the risk, take the chance of leaving Mumbai, going back to the villages, and being exposed to the humanitarian crisis that we are all witnessing in the last few weeks.
And I believe there's a fundraiser that people can go to visit and donate if they want to, if they would like to help out.
Yeah, we have launched crowdfunding with Keto for the stipends of the artisans for the month of April, and we are a few $100 away from reaching our target. And clearly now, even more, we need support for the month of May. And very honestly, I don't expect that June will be in Mumbai. The situation is going to suddenly become safe. So in case someone wants to support us, you can find either they can go to Keto, but I've seen that it's not so straightforward to find it. or they can come to our website or to our Facebook or Instagram page and find it. It's called Sari Emergency Fund.
I've also just asked Purnima, Stefano, to add the link in the chat of this,
Great.
so people can directly find it amongst this conversation. Back over to you guys, carry on.
No problem. So we actually have a bunch of questions, Suki, and maybe we should just break out and answer a few. I mean, I have a couple of things to talk to Stefano about, but I think it would probably sum it up well, because it's about the future of circularity and other things. But if we should maybe address the Q&A.
We've got our first question from Soha. Soha, you're feel free to ask the question yourself unless you would like me to speak on your behalf. I've added your audio, so do go ahead and ask your question. I'm not sure.
Hi, Stefano. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
I saw, yes.
Yes. So I wanted to know your thoughts on how can an aspiring or like an upcoming brand work at making sustainable fashion accessible to a larger consumer base, especially in the current times.
Is your question related to the positioning, the pricing? What are you?
Yes, I am specifically referencing to the pricing, because when we talk about sustainable fashion, we tend to think of it as something that is very expensive or more like an investment. So I wanted to know how can somebody make it more accessible?
Yeah, very interesting question. We have learned that one of the major issues of sustainable fashion is the perception from the consumers. And basically, there are two big aspects that are really always associated with sustainable fashion. One is that is not affordable. And the second one is that is not desirable. So I really believe that we have listened to these two aspects from day one. And we really try our best, and there is a lot of room for improvement. First of all, in order to make our products desirable. Fashion is about looking good. If you only focus on feeling good, do good, yeah, maybe someone can buy one item, two items because there is a connection with the cause. But so products have to be desirable. Wow, you want really, it has to become something aspirational to have a product from brand XYZ. And the second aspect is about affordability. I agree that very often sustainable brands or sustainable capsule collections are priced too high, and people that are the most interested in those kind of products cannot afford. So I really believe that having in mind that sustainable fashion at the end of the day tends to be more expensive than the linear or the traditional fashion, for the reason that I was explaining before. It's very important not to overprice, and the products have to be sexy, attractive. You cannot just use gray, dull material and expect to be really successful in the market. Now, for a new brand, and we are part of that, the big challenge is that in order to become competitive in terms of prices, you normally need volume. And volume in circularity doesn't always help, because volumes brings more complexity. And that is a little bit a catch-22, but it's not different from any other business any other startup. At the beginning, it's tough. It's tough because you need volume, and without volume, your material is more expensive, your production is more expensive. That's the name of the game.
So just want to ask one clarifier question, which is that do you qualify as being like a handicraft, or is there some benefits or special statuses that because you work with communities and you're working on social upliftment and you guys are passing on certain skills? And the other question I wanted to ask you is about, because you're a city based, because you guys are city based, like, is there any urban civic support for manufacturing in the city, or anything that currently doesn't exist or could exist? Or maybe you've heard of other parts of the world where, if you're doing crafts in the city, there are structures that can, be given to places like that, whether in tax benefits or energy benefits or rent benefits, or just curious, because I think the big question for sustainable fashion for me is always volume and consumption. Like, ultimately, if we are just pushing that, you're going to fall into the trap. But maybe the answer is making it cheaper to keep these businesses going because they are in that model.
I think that the answer to your second question is no. We don't get any support, and actually, I'm also always a little bit reluctant to look for this kind of benefits. I think that India is not at the stage yet of acknowledging the importance of a movement like sustainable fashion. Clearly, when you look at other markets in Europe, in the US, you can find, from the consumer's point of view, but also from the government, that there is a much higher priority in their agenda in favor of sustainable fashion. So I think that time is not mature yet in India to approach government and local organizations to discuss about supporting the movement. I hope to be proven soon wrong, but that's my feeling. And about the importance of the fact that we have a social cause and there is livelihood involved, and so it's clearly very important. But even there, we always remind ourselves that first, you need to be a brand. First, you need to be desirable. And I always like to think that when you enter in a retail store, in a concept store, and you have a certain budget, you enter and you see few products that you like. And at that point, you need to decide how are you going to use your budget. I think that first of all, you need to see, and I was a Sari product, and you need to feel attracted by it. You need to really like the product. And then you end up having two products in your hands. And at that point, when you turn the tag and you understand that not only that product is nice and nicely done, and so, but there is also a cause, then we win. So it's really, never forget which are the drivers of fashion, and then come with the story. And if the two are well, if you really play with both in the right order, in the right way, then you have clearly a unique selling point. And I believe that COVID will create a lot of disruptions for us in the supply chain, on the demand side. But I am absolutely convinced that there will be also and a new generation of consumers, of conscious consumers that will come out fresh from this experience. And brand like other brands like us will hopefully be an answer for this, for the existing and for the new conscious consumers that will look for something more in what they buy.
Sure. Perfect. Great. Okay, cool. Back to the question.
We have a ton of questions and comments, so
I will try to behave and give shorter answers. I try.
No. Why? We don't have a time. Yeah.
This is great. We're absorbing. So firstly, I wanted to say thank you, Soha, for your question. We've got a question from Kushbu, but prior to that, I'm just going to share some comments. Redmi from Delhi says she's very, very glad to see you and hear you, dear Mr. Stefano Funari. So thank you, Redmi. And then we've got a question we've got a comment from Shaili Gupta and a question later, but she's a student from NIFT Mumbai. She can't define how much she resonates with your visions. In the bigger picture, she sees herself working on similar paths. For starters, it'd be huge to let them know how one can intern. And I guess Purnima can be in touch and let these people know in the chat. So Purnima, I'm going to leave that one over to you and we'll come back to that question later. Cobalt Blue Foundation has got a couple of questions. Great to have you on here. Part of that you might have already answered, Stefano, but I'm going to jump straight into Brenna's question. So let me just unmute you, Brenna, and you can ask your question outright. Over to you, Brenna.
How would consumers, yeah.
What you're doing with the brand?
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, I love what you're doing with the brand, Stefano. I just wanted to ask, how do you think the fashion industry would be after this COVID-19? Do you think people will go back to retail buying as they did for so many years, or do you think they would support local brands more? That's my main question.
Prerna, are you asking from the consumer point of view, or from the supplies, or from the companies, the brands point of view?
I do plan on starting my own brand, but as a more sustainable brand which uses natural dyes and things like that. So you could say from the point of a producer, designer.
As I was mentioning before, I think that after COVID, first of all, for everybody, the goal will be to survive. I'm here this evening. I'm having a very pleasant conversation. I mean, these days, these weeks are not easy, and we cannot take for granted that we will survive, because it all depends from how long the lockdown will last, and it will all depends from how brutal the disruptions will be after COVID. We will face disruption on the supply chain side. It will be much more difficult for us for many months to source the material. And on the demand side, it will be really a nightmare. Think about unemployment. Think about so it's going to be really tough. Now, for brands that work in sustainability, there will be two trends that are really going in two completely different directions. From one side, the demand will go down because there will be much less availability of money from the consumer side. But as I was explaining before, there will be higher demand for truly sustainable products. Which one will prevail? It's really the big question, and pricing and affordability will become even more crucial. My point of view is that it will be tough to survive, but for those that will make it, there will be really interesting opportunities. Now, for a brand that is planning to start now, I had this conversation a few days ago with a colleague of mine that is considering to launch her own brand. Young, talented person with a background in fashion. And I was telling her that timing is everything when you start a new job, when you start a company. So my 2 cents, you can have the greatest idea in fashion, in any business, but if you try to execute that idea at the wrong time, the likelihood of failing is very high. So the next months, and probably at least the next year, is going to be the worst time in order to start a new venture. And so I don't want to sound negative, but it's really forget about growth, forget about everything. It's about surviving and really finding a way to go back to a sort of normal business.
Sure.
Well said, Stefano. Alia, is there anything you wanted to comment on, or shall I go to the next question?
No, I was just gonna. I think I can put it in. I will just sum it up. The notion of surviving and what we need to do for each other to survive. Yeah, but let's carry on with the questions.
Okay, so Khushbu asked an interesting question, and I think I just want to share a little bit of insight of my knowledge with her. She said she has a question that most of fashion brands are targeting women as their primary consumer. Why is that so? And how can a brand identify their primary consumers? So I just wanted to let Khushbu know that there's some interesting reports online, and I've often looked into this sort of gender conversation in fashion. So do look up Lyst, L-Y-S-T. They produced a report about consumer behavior in sustainable fashion. They also look at metrics of social media, and I think they looked at 12,000 brands or something along those lines. So they kind of did bust that myth a little bit. Very interesting dialogue. That's probably another conversation for another day, one that I'm quite passionate about. But do dive a little deeper into that. And there are a number of male brands. I'm not going to advocate and endorse them, but if you wish to know about them, I'm happy to sort of let you know on a side note. But Lyst is a report you should read into, and it will steer you and guide you into that notion somewhat more. And I leave it to the experts. And Stefano, I'm sure you might want to add to that.
I don't know if I am an expert. Also because I didn't mention at the beginning, but I have a completely different background. So I'm in fashion by chance or by mistake. But my view is that, first of all, fashion is big also in menswear. So I don't have the numbers in mind, but it's big. There is a trend, especially when you look and you target millennials, Gen Z, that basically is moving towards a genderless approach, and we are very much looking into that. When you look at our Sari, clearly our portfolio is mainly targeting female segment, and that's also due to the print and colors that we find with the saris we can source. But going forward, we absolutely plan to expand our catalog also for men. And we want to design more and more products that really forget about the traditional barriers between genders.
So next one should be.
Next question, we have got Chitrankshi. I hope I said that right. I'm going to patch you in actually. Good question. So Chitrankshi, over to you. You're unmuted. Do fire away with your question.
Hi, Stefano. Good to hear you. We really got a lot of in-depth detail from you. Thank you so much. And my question basically was, what do you think the fashion industry would probably look like post-COVID? And how should the fashion graduates blend themselves in order to make a place for themselves in the coming situation? So what would your answer be to that? Thank you.
I think that
would there be a surge in the employment, or will the employment level go down? I mean, yeah, more or less towards employment, because
I mean, Stefano sort of
will we see
a bit of it in his earlier answer, which was that it's going to be
yeah.
So
Yeah, it has been previously answered.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be difficult for the next few months. I can answer that. I have one concern, and I hope that things will not go in that direction. And the concern is that looking only at surviving and looking only at the bottom line, companies in India and internationally, especially the large brands, will lose their focus on sustainability. Sustainability really became a top priority in every company, in the agenda of every CEOs during the last 2 years, and it has never been so hot and really not just a PR topic like in the last few months. So now,
talking about textile companies, or specifically the fashion and textile industry, or generally?
Generally, clearly, for fashion is absolutely the case. So now the risk is that that priority could go down, could really be positioned second, third, and then even disappear from the agenda of the CEOs. I think that should not happen, and I really hope that the demand, the consumers, will make it so clear, will really send out a message that will be so clear that no brand will even think about taking that chance. At the end, I believe that it will really depend from the demand side. So consumers will decide how relevant the topic will remain in the agenda of every company. Managers will play their role. Managers and entrepreneurs, at a certain point, they will have to go back to the fundamentals and look at the bottom line and the numbers. The consumers can really keep all of us focused on the fact that without sustainability, there is no business in future. I really hope that that's going to happen.
So we've got a couple more questions. Thanks for that, Stefano. Should we go into the question with Cobalt Blue Foundation? I know you've got a couple of questions, but I do feel that Stefano's answered parts of those. So do dive into your most burning question. And I'm not sure who it is we're speaking to from Cobalt Blue Foundation, but do introduce yourself and ask away.
Hi, Stefanos. My name is Sandeep Verma. And so my question was related to, this concept of sustainability. It should reach to more and more people. All the way to the mainstream, the guy on the street. And I have always, so I work in the area of brand storytelling. I have a client from London who is working in the sustainable area, and they were planning to launch their product in India before this COVID-19 situation, and they stepped back. But we were doing some brainstorming that time, and we were dealing with the challenges of how do we generate interest of common people into this movement, and what is the story we tell them. And I do have one example of Body Shop long time back. They started their brand from the similar way of typical skincare products and all that. So they had these the same story that I was Sari. And but what is the story now? Like, how do we tell the story to these guys who have very least amount of attention span as well? So what could be a good story, a brand story about sustainability that we can tell these people?
Can I just off the top of my head, just jump in with your earlier thoughts, Stefano, which is that it's not just the story, but it also has to be, like in the case of I Was a Sari, it's also the design. Like the whole example that he had given is that, like, when I bought this hairband from I Was a Sari, I bought 3 of them because they were so pretty and I couldn't help it. And then of course it helped that it like aligned with my principles of sustainability. But end of the day, I would have, it was so beautiful that I looked at it not because it was sustainable, but because it was beautiful. So, I mean, if you extrapolate that to somebody in need of a service, they will go for that service. It has to still be that service that they want.
The main differentiator of this movement is that sustainability and ethical practices, and what I Was Sari has this wonderful concept that I really like, the triple bottom line concept, right? So social, environmental, and financial.
I tell you, first of all, as a small brand, there is only that much that we can do in order to shape the market. We need to be part of something bigger. And so I go back to what I mentioned before. We do a bit more than 10% of our revenues in India. And when we look at where we make those revenues, we discover that we sell to NRI and we sell to foreigners visiting India. And that's because India is not really ready for the concept of upcycling. If you think that we work with saris, there are a lot of layers that need to be, who was wearing that sari? And then I had so many discussions about, we sell with a premium, but in the Western market, we are considered to be really affordable. In India, we are considered to be slightly pricey. And the point is that when I have a discussion with a typical Indian consumer is, how can it be 600 rupees? I know I can get that sari for this much, my tailor could do for that much. And I immediately stop that. I agree with everything. Please take out your old saris and turn them into amazing products. And we try to do. So in India is a tough call because the market at the moment is still mainly aspirational. It's still mainly about I buy a brand. I buy a brand that people recognize. That in other markets is the job is done by fashion revolution, by magazine, and so then the point becomes how to really position yourself, how to really be relevant in the overall movement. And you go back to the basics of marketing.
Yeah.
There is nothing different from what every other company, other brand would do.
Right. So yeah, it's a tough market to crack from that perspective. You know?
Thank you so much for that question. I didn't quite catch your name, sorry.
My name is Sandeep Verma.
Sandeep. Thank you, Sandeep.
Yes.
So we're now going to ask a question from Shilpa. I'd love to have your question now. Shilpa, are you still there? About coming together? Otherwise, I will ask your question, which you've part sort of answered when it comes to volume, Stefano. 1 second, Shilpa. It would help if I unmuted you, wouldn't it? There you go. Okay, Shilpa, you're live now. No sound, so I'm going to ask the question on your behalf. Can we figure out a way of coming together to create volume for, let's say, fabric dyeing or procurement of fabric, etc., to eventually reduce the cost of sustainable fashion? I guess that idea of working as a collective. You kind of touched on it earlier, Stefano.
Yeah, we are a collective. We are, for instance, a design collective. We have very limited internal capabilities of designing our own products. And I believe that circularity is very much about different players coming together. So in our case, for instance, we don't dye our Sari, so I cannot enter in that specific segment of the supply chain, but sustainability, circularity is very much about like-minded people coming together and really, even if they are sometimes competitors, you put that aside and you really try ways to create synergies. We really apply this concept in so many different ways. We really try to leverage unleveraged resources in every area. It can be from legal services to design to logistics. I want to make one example. We are lucky in many respects, and in 2018, at certain point, Gucci approached us, and we started a collaboration. So we have a partnership. We don't produce for Gucci, obviously. We are not at that level. They don't sell our products, clearly, to completely different markets. But we do work on amazing projects together. And the one I really like the most is called, basically it's this collaboration between us and Gucci Changemakers. Gucci Changemakers is the volunteering program for all the Gucci employees. Gucci employees can work a certain number of days every year, and they are paid in order to support social causes that are close to their hearts. We managed to convince Gucci to say, good, let's work together using your talents, and basically your people can work on small, very precise, very vertical projects for us. So we have people, we have photographers, we have designers, we have accountants, and these people can work 2 days, 3 days. In some cases, they came for like 2 weeks to Mumbai. And it's, for me, it's really amazing, because think about all the big companies. They are full of talents, and talents really are desperately looking for a meaning in what they do. And sometimes when you work for a normal company, it's difficult every day to wake up and knowing exactly why you are running so much. And we give Gucci an opportunity to say, okay, we need it. And you have talents everywhere. Think about the designers that Gucci has. And so we co-design activities. It is something that in the past, I don't think that would have been really possible. And today companies start understanding that this is the direction. So this is a very specific case, but there is so much space for collaboration, and the mindset of companies, small, medium, large, is really changing. And so go ahead in that direction. For us, it's a must. We see ourselves as part of an ecosystem where we really can try to give also back, but we can really get from any kind of professional player, students. I mean, everybody can really contribute to what we do. And even in sourcing, like in the example you mentioned.
Thank you, Stefano. I'm going to now lead us on to a lovely question from Bhavya Goenka, founder of the wonderful Ero Zero Waste, based up in Jaipur. Bhavya, do join us to ask your question, because I think it'll be a good way to sort of start wrapping up today's session. So over to you, Bhavya. Oh,
I did unmute her. Yeah.
Bhavya, you are unmuted now.
Hi Suki, hi Alia, hi Stefano. It's so nice to see you all. I just this was amazing to listen into because I obviously echo everything what Stefano said, but also learned so much more. As always, Stefano. But my question is that apart from the fundraiser, what steps are you taking to ensure survival? Because our goal is also just to survive right now. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very good, very relevant question. You know, fundraising is oxygen for us, but the amount we are fundraising is probably 1/3 of the salaries and stipends that we pay in a month. So just to give the order of magnitude, we are lucky because due to our policy, we have never distributed profits. So we have some reserves. We are lucky because last financial year was successful for us. So we are in the position to basically deal with our fixed costs and including the salaries for a few months. But clearly, we need to be sure that when this will be over, we will still be in the position to restart our business, and we will have resources to invest in the working capital. And so what are we thinking to do is, for instance, we are looking into investors, because we will probably need injection of resources. And for us is particularly challenging because being a zero dividend company, we can only tap into social investors, but also on a very specific segment of social investors. So so one really area in which we are working is how to secure financial resources in order to not only bridge these difficult times, but also to accelerate afterwards. Another aspect is use this time in order to work on your brand, in order to work on your value proposition. And in this respect, for instance, with Purnima, my colleague, who is heading our marketing and communication, and with the rest of the team, we are really working a lot on really improving and designing the identity of the brand for the months and years ahead. And we are also working on the product side. An important exercise is also, unfortunately, to look very, very carefully into cost cutting. If you cannot control revenues, if you cannot decide whether investors will come or not, one exercise that it's a must in these difficult times is to cut costs.
Thank you for that question, Bhavya, and thank you, Stefano, for answering that. I'm going to now duck out and, I guess, close the Q&A and leave it to you both. It's been a pleasure, thank you, and it's been insightful, but I will add that we will be adding the I Was a Sari fundraising link to our social media stories. We'll coordinate that with Purnima so we get the correct link, so anybody that wishes to can share it, find out more and do something. So we always say at Fashion Revolution, be curious, find out, do something. And on that note, thank you all from on my behalf. Over to Alia and Stefano.
Well, I mean, Suki, we've had a really, really fascinating session. Both, I think the Q&A and the questions were so rich. We covered so many things that, you know, were not originally on the agenda. It's very interesting to have always the audiences so keen on sustainable fashion. I prefer to sort of break it down into, you know, smaller boxes, because I think circularity, like if you just isolate circularity from the entire, you know, from the entire value proposition, it's such an important thing to talk about. And I wanted to just end the session with the question that, you know, if things had not, you know, if we were not in a lockdown, if COVID had not happened, in terms of circularity and the future of circularity, and you know, what are your views on I'm very curious about, you know, industry support and global support to you know, bring circularity, you know, give it a louder voice. So I just wanted you to touch on that for a couple of minutes, because of, you know, you've been traveling, you've been talking to people from all over, you know, there was a wave, it was building. So just wanted to know about that.
We know that we are at the beginning, still at the very early stage of our journey in terms of circularity and sustainability. So in these weeks, for instance, we have accelerated a project regarding our labeling and our packaging, because most of our raw material is sustainable because it's upcycled, but there is so much more that we can do. So we are going to shift our sourcing towards fully sustainable materials and practices. So that's one example. And I think that for us, there is this very special attention in our priorities to the social part. So we are really working in order to understand how our stakeholders, and mainly our staff and our artisans, can benefit even more directly from what we do. And so that is something that in a way is part of the overall discussion about sustainability. But looking specifically at the circular aspect is about really never feel satisfied about where you stand, because once you are done with packaging, which is a big part, you can look into all the consumables that are also relevant, and you can start really selecting your suppliers based on how sustainable is their offering. And once you're done with that, you can start looking into energy, you can start looking into transportation, you can start looking into disruptive models that have to do with working from home, reducing the mobility of people. So it's really an endless journey, and yeah, we like everybody else. We are not here to pretend to be the experts, and we have really so much that we can do, and we are trying our best, and we will keep working in that direction.
Well, thank you so much. I think that's the right question on which to end the session. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. Yes, please don't forget the fundraiser. If you enjoyed listening to this conversation and you think the work that is being done is important, please do check it out. And let's see if we can keep I Was a Sari going for many, many decades, and get Stefano back into India. And thank you, everyone. Suki, thank you so much. Should we sign off? Or do you want to do like a multi-screen shot like we did on the last one?
I think we should do a multi-screen shot and have everybody join us on the screen and give us a wave, if you don't mind showing yourself.
Thank you very much, Aliyah. Thanks to everybody for your time. I enjoyed the question. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're having a slight difficulty doing the panel setup. Where is everybody?
Yeah, we see a lot of galaxy.
Is everybody now? Wave. Get your hair fixed, photo. 1 second. And everybody that's... Oh.
Sorry. I'm just going to get the remote.
I can only see Shruti and...
So there's only white sugar, even I'm not too keen. Only once we've tasted it, we should decide if we want to add.
Yeah, I can see lots of people. Can you? Or is it just...
I can see the ones who put the cameras on. But
I'm sorry? I will
go.
not,
It's very pungent. We need more.
Thanks, guys.
Very pungent.
Nice to have had you all. Nice to have had you joining us. Don't forget to share the...
Did you really touch it?
Let's support our artisans and keep the conversation going.
Oh, it won't be good something like that.
We will be sharing episode 3 too.
Dheere dheere or add on?
On that note, I think it's time to say ciao.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Is there too little curry right now?
Bye, Stefano.
For the veggies?